material nature in 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita in more details. And the jiva, so normally the jiva in this world, jiva is us, the conditions, living entities that become conditions and enjoys or suffers according to the influence of these three modes of material nature. And there are little more, but the benefits of being in mode of goodness, what are the benefits? So the mode of goodness is considered purer than the rest too, and is eliminating, and it frees ones from all the sinful reactions. So those who are situated in the mode of goodness become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. And Srila Prabhupada has written in his purport of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, verse number 16, that the effect of developing the mode of goodness in the material world is that one becomes wiser than those otherwise conditioned. So a man in mode of goodness is not so much affected by material miseries, and he has that sense of advancement in material knowledge. So the representative type of this particular mode is Brahmana. So we know there are different classes like Brahmana, Kshatriya, Shudra. So normally the mode of goodness is represented by Brahmanas. And so they are supposed to be situated in mode of goodness. And the sense of happiness is due to the understanding that in the mode of goodness, one is more or less free from sinful reactions. But actually in the Vedic literature, it is said that the mode of goodness means greater knowledge and a greater sense of happiness. But the difficulty here is that when living entity is situated in that mode of goodness, then he becomes conditioned to feel that he is advanced in knowledge, he is better than others. So in this way, in this mode of goodness also he becomes conditioned because of that sense. And the best examples are like the scientists, philosophers. They are all like, very advanced in knowledge. So they become proud, like they become proud of the knowledge. And because of that, they generally improve their living conditions. They feel sort of material happiness. So this sense of advanced happiness in conditioned life makes them bound by the mode of goodness of material nature. So as such, they are attracted towards working in the mode of goodness. But as long as they have an attraction for working in that way, they have to take some type of body in the modes of nature. So thus there is no likelihood of liberation or being transferred to the spiritual world. Repeatedly, one may become philosopher, scientist, poet, or repeatedly become entangled in the same disadvantages of birth and death. But due to this illusion of material energy, one thinks that his sort of life is very pleasant. So again, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, verse number 7, that the mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings. Now we have completed the mode of goodness, little bit about mode of passion now. So that is this verse in chapter 14, verse number 7, where it describes about mode of passion. Mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti, and because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions. So the mode of passion normally conditions one to fruitive action. So Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport in this same chapter 14, verse number 7 purport, that the mode of passion is characterized by the attractions between a man and women. A woman has an attraction for a man and a man has an attraction for a woman. This is called the mode of passion. And when the mode of passion is increased, one develops the hankering for material enjoyment. And he wants to enjoy sense gratification. For sense gratification, a man in the mode of passion wants some honor in the society or in the nation, and he wants to have a happy family with nice children, wife, house. So these are the products of mode of passion. As long as one is hankering after these things, he has to work very, very hard. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that he becomes associated with the fruits of his activities and thus becomes bound by such activities. and a little bit about tamogun. So the word tamo means darkness, and therefore tamogun conditions one into delusion. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, verse number 8, Lord Krishna says, O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness, born out of ignorance, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. And the result of this mode are madness, indolence, sleep, which binds the conditioned soul. So, in the purport of this verse, Srila Prabhupada writes that in this verse, the specific application of the word tu is very significant. This means that the mode of ignorance is a very peculiar qualification of the embodied soul. And the mode of ignorance is just the opposite of the mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, by the development of knowledge, one can understand what is what. But in the mode of ignorance is just totally opposite. Everyone under the spell of this mode of ignorance becomes mad, and a madman cannot understand what is what. So instead of making advancement, one becomes degraded in this mode. The definition of the mode of ignorance is also stated in Vedic literature. Vastu yathamya jnana varakam viparyaya jnanakam tamaha. So under the spell of ignorance, one cannot understand a thing as it is. For example, a man can see that his grandfather has died and therefore he will also die. But man is mortal. Man is mortal. The children that he conceives will also die. So death is sure. But still people are madly accumulating money, working very hard all day and night, not caring for the eternal spirit. So this is madness. And in their madness, they are very reluctant to make advancement in spiritual understanding. So such people are very lazy. When they are invited to associate for spiritual understanding, they are not much interested. They are not even active like the man who is controlled by the mode of passion. So thus another symptom of one embedded in the mode of ignorance is that he sleeps more than what is required. 6 hours of sleep should be sufficient, but a man in the mode of ignorance sleeps at least 10 to 12 hours a day. Such a man appears to be always dejected, is addicted to intoxicants and sleeping. These are the symptoms of a person which are conditioned by the mode of ignorance. So the three modes of this were the three modes of material nature. And these are the ones that entangles the living entity and tie him to this material world. And this way the living entity regularly gets slaughtered by Maya. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. That is it. If you want to add something.
Thank you for sharing.
I mean, that is why Krishna has said that become transcendental of all these three moods. Because either mode of goodness or passion or ignorance, it binds us in the material world. So then in the second chapter, Krishna has said that Traigunya Vishaveda, Nistre Gunyo Bhavarjuna, Nirdvando Nitya Satvastho. What was the last one, Prabhuji? Shema At Niryog Shema Atmana, right? That's what Krishna has said, that become be free from all the dualities and become transcendental, all these three modes, because it's like that mode of goodness or passion. It's mode of goodness is like a tied oneself in a gold chain. I mean, yes, it is very necessary to become advancement and be in the mode of goodness to become a spiritual advancement, one who can take or receive the knowledge being in mode of goodness, but still it will gonna bind. So we have to be on the transcendental state.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Shri Prabhupada. Yes, Prabhuji, I think you were there for that discussion. One of the salient points, so these are the women of Hastinapura. They are standing on the rooftops and they are looking at Krishna leaving for Dwarka. And they are speaking all kinds of philosophy, including the Sankhya philosophy that we are reading right now. They summarize it. And so Srila Prabhupada, in one of the earlier purports, also mentions that, so this is actually proof also that, the knowledge is given through devotional service and complete surrender. It's not that it's only the great sages who have performed austerities who acquired this knowledge, but even the simple women are able to understand Krishna so well. That was one of the points. And the second thing, you were there for that discussion, was a very beautiful verse that really summarized what we should be doing in our lives. And the verse translation, I'll just paraphrase it. It says that only those wise men can experience the transcendental form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who have rendered devotional service and have controlled their senses and life. So we were discussing how fortunate we are that we've been given this process in a very simple way by Srila Prabhupada. Two things. The positive injunction is carry out devotional service, and the negative injunction is do not engage in four things, right? The four regulative principles. So, and it's a very simple process, and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's very clearly stated, it's only by these two that go hand in hand that one can, and it is by this that we can actually see or experience the transcendental form of the Lord. So it was very positive to know that we are following something that will ultimately help us see the actual form of Krishna. And there are so many unfortunate people in this world who just don't know, who have not been fortunate enough to receive this instruction. And so it shows us also the value of Krishna consciousness. We may not understand it fully because we're not serious about it, but it just is another reminder of how fortunate we are. Hare Krishna.
I came across a very nice article. Can we take turns to read that? Eightfold Pastimes of Lord Krishna. Um, Okay. Yeah, I posted the link. We can read after this class.
Very Krishna. So when you were saying this, I was thinking two things. One thing is that I've heard this several times, and you kind of catch a glimpse of it in most of us. If we are old enough, we can catch a glimpse of it in our own lives. That it is said that a few things are already preordained. The time and place of our birth, the time and place of our death, and the amount of education that we will receive, the amount of wealth that we will have. Um, I think that pretty much covers that. But we find ourselves, uh, yes, family situation, everything. So, but we find ourselves over endeavoring for these things. And so that we can live our life with that understanding that whatever is due to me, I will get. Like for example, wealth. So I will get not a penny more, not a penny less. If we can just bring that understanding and make it very firm, it really simplifies our lives. Then we will not think of promotion or like asking for a raise, which we often find ourselves in those situations because of peer pressure, whatever it is. But if we can live that, that itself is like, one less load off of our shoulders. Yes, of course, about education. I mean, I was unfortunate to be in Krishna consciousness when I was studying, so I thought it was only by my endeavor that I can study and get a degree or whatever it is. But but yeah, if we are fortunate to have this information at the right time, then we can really simplify our lives. And yeah, but yeah, even if that is also preordained, right? Like what you will have at any given of time, any given point of time, if it's preordained, then it doesn't really matter. Like even so, if we have to do that, then that will also happen automatically. Is what I'm trying to say. Everything happens automatically. We've come across so many situations in our lives where, okay, we may get some wealth, but that wealth will go away also. It will be taken away. Why? Because at that particular time, we were only supposed to have this much.
So in that case, Prabhuji, sometimes
Mm. So I was thinking of this example of Arjuna and Krishna in the 11th chapter, right? Universal form, where Krishna is showing Arjuna, if, regardless of what choice you make, these people are going to die. And he fast forwards a little bit and shows that to him. So Bhishma and Drona are like little jeera, right? Cumin seeds stuck on his teeth, and so he's showing this universal form, and he's showing how all these people are just being like it's like chakki mein pisne wali baat, like they're going, like they're getting ground. Um, and so that helps Arjuna in some way to kind of understand what his duty is. But that little minute freedom, because regardless of what choices we make, it seems like whatever is ordained will happen. Now again, of course, what you were saying, 100%, like it's very hard for us to see that. But yes, there is, because we are, I mean, at least in my case, it's very hard to see how Krishna can alter that. But that also sometimes we are, if we're fortunate, we can catch a glimpse of that in our lives too. That, okay, maybe our astrological chart says this is going to happen this way, and then Krishna can turn it around and give you something that you were not expecting. Um, so yeah, and I was thinking of one other thing. I mean, in astrology, there are two things: there's Rashi and Lagna, and one of them controls how we will react to a situation, and the other one is actually the fate, like destiny. So even I was thinking, even in a conditioned soul, even that free will is controlled by the planetary positions. So it's just so it's such a tight system that there's no escape until we surrender. No. See, that's the problem, right? Like, then why did Krishna say in the 16th chapter, Yat Shastravidam Utsrajya Vartate Kamakar? Like, why did he give it? He says that we should, regardless of what our, what our situation is, we should always abide by the Guru Sadhu Shastra. So that. Yeah, I mean, when we are conditioned and we don't know, then probably we'll just do whatever we want. But when we know, it's like I've heard Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj say this. In India, people know that killing of a cow is a sin, it's a terrible sin. Eating is a terrible sin. All these regulative principles are terrible sins. And in spite of that, if they do it, then the results of their actions are far more grave than a person who's just doing it without knowing. Uh, yeah, bala, bala diva niyodita. And there's also, right, knowledge is not just assimilating and assimilating and assimilating. It's actually an application. And then the third step, once we have applied and that, like what you're saying, once we become realized by then we can disseminate it very nicely. Otherwise, then that knowledge, otherwise the knowledge is, I've heard this, like it's like a donkey who's carrying kumkum on his back, like saffron. He doesn't know what he's carrying. He's just carrying that load. Um, so that doesn't mean anything. Last night I was listening to Mukundata Prabhu. He was saying, and I've heard this before too. So there's this song, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya. Trinapekha, Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya, Karo e Dashe, Trinapekha Ati Hina. So make me humbler than a blade of grass. Which is Renadapi Sunijena. So, but what does it actually mean? It means we are asking to be humiliated. Because unless we are humiliated and we can tolerate that, how can we become humble? And that's a very difficult thing to swallow. Once, as soon as I've realized, as soon as we become humiliated, some that ego just resists so badly. I feel that way at least. I mean, maybe I'm a very, I'm more egoistic than every one of you, but I strongly react when I'm humiliated. Mm. Mm. And if you think of why the material world was created, it was created to be a prison. It's a prison house. So the prisoner cannot say, why can't I have an 85-inch plasma TV on the wall? The government has that much money. They can give me that. It doesn't work that way, right? Is it true that in the heavenly plans I've heard this so in so many places in the scriptures that even the demigods or even the heavenly beings, they all want to come to the earth because this is the only place where we can do bhajan. So is it because there's so much enjoyment there that they're not burning, they don't feel the desire, the need to pray? Is that what it is? That in that we get only it's said, right, like we get satsang only on earth, we can do bhajan only on earth, so even those heavenly beings are longing to take birth in on earth.
Prabhuji, in one of the Amoglalas Prabhu's class long time back, I also heard there are like 6 things that are destined. Mataji was talking. How do we know? If everything is ordained. So he was saying, birth, death, fame and infamy, and then how much wealth you'll have, and then also whom you'll marry. I think, if I'm not wrong. And in between all this, it's all your desires that you're trying to fulfill. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It can change, as soon as you're in the path of devotional service, Krishna is, paying attention to you as well, how much, you have surrendered, and then, things can change, even if those are destined. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
So, Prabhu, you had you had mentioned about how even pure devotees of the Lord suffer. I wanted to just read a small portion of the purport by Srila Prabhupada in chapter 9, text 12, canto 1. So this is Bhishma Dev talking to the Pandavas at the time of his death. And here it's written, he wanted to point out particularly that they were always protected by the Brahmanas, the Lord, and religious principles. As long as they were protected by these three important items, there was no cause of disappointment. Thus, Bhishma Dev encouraged Maharaj Yudhishthir to dissipate his despondency. As long as a person is fully in cooperation with the wishes of the Lord, guided by the bona fide Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and strictly following religious principles, one has no cause for despondency, however trying the circumstances of life. So it's very nice that there are three things that will keep us afloat. One is that aligning ourselves with the wishes of the Lord. Second is taking shelter of or being guided completely by a bona fide spiritual master. And then on our part, we have to follow the principles, the religious principles. So it's very nice. I mean, this I really like those three things that if we can remember this all our lives in whatever circumstance, it will save us. So a lot of times when we pray, we follow how others pray, and we say, Krishna, if you so desire, please, fulfill this prayer of mine. But we are not in our hearts. We are not really, we want what we want. It's not like if Krishna willing, all these things that we say, I think at least it's superficial because deep within us, we want what we want. So that's the thing right there. The problem is we are so lukewarm. And and I was recently, somebody was sharing with me, and it was kind of very shocking, disturbing actually, how in those days, in the 70s, 60s, I guess, I don't know exactly the time frame, but there was deprogramming. We must have all heard about it in interviews and in Srila Prabhupada's, I think the movie also showed something like that. So the deprogramming that used to happen to kind of make the devotees who were surrendered to Srila Prabhupada go away and get back into the mundane world. And someone was sharing with me how his own parents did that. Like his own parents were involved. Like it's usually the parents, so they entrust someone to do this. And just so if someone doesn't know what deprogramming is, there were people in those days who used to kidnap you, keep you under captive, hold you captive in really bad circumstances, and then they would really work on somehow brainwashing you into telling that like this is not the way to go, this is a cult or whatever it is, and really really bad circumstances. And this person was describing how he escaped from that. um, and so for him this is so valuable because he it was threatened at some point, but we don't take it seriously because we don't face those threats. And I think we really have to go through some really bad circumstances to even appreciate what we've been given. And we will at some point, we will. So what if I was born as a lizard in my next birth? I cannot take to bhakti, or at least not the way I want to. And then when I'm just wondering, will that put me back in like on track? I don't know. It's the $1 million question. Why do bad things happen to good people? People always ask these questions. Oh, I don't. I didn't know that he went through. I heard that his father offered him like I don't know $1 million or something, a lot of money to come back. true. It could have. Would it have something to do? I mean, we were discussing this actually. Mukundatha Prabhuji used to do this for us, like this whole Sankhya philosophy we went through. So, uh, uh, like the hearing is the first sense to develop. We see in the case of Prahlad Maharaj, and I've also heard it's the last thing to leave, the last faculty to leave us. So I'm wondering if that could have anything to do with it. That like among senses, is that the first thing to appear? Sound. No, it's the first thing, right? Like in the case of Prahlad Maharaj, when he's within the womb of Kayadu, when he was within the womb of Kayadu, he could hear Narad Muni, and this has been scientifically proven. There were some articles that in the womb, the fetus can hear. Actually, 2 years ago, I saw an article. It was a science article that somebody had shown me about that. That yes, scientists do believe, and they found out that the fetus can hear, and that's one of the developed senses, the first thing to develop in a fetus. Yeah, we don't know. Yeah, we don't know about this. The reason is, I used to have a dog, and when I first got him, I adopted him, and he was from here, so obviously I used to speak to him in English. Then about after a year or so, or I can't remember, like I suddenly started speaking to him in Hindi, and he actually understand. Like it's not like sit, stand, stay, not that. It's like full sentences, everything, and he would understand whether I spoke in English or in Hindi, and it was baffling, like it was mind-boggling how he did it. But no, not any other language, no. In Tamil or something, he'd just look at me, but Hindi and English. I don't know from where he learned Hindi. I don't know. No, I really hope not, because he actually liked to hear scriptures. So if I could sit and read to him, and he would be super quiet and hear. But if I turned on something else, if or even if I spoke something else, he would immediately get agitated. So yeah, he had some inherent sense of things. But how did he know the language? Really mind-boggling. People used to ask me like, he's a bilingual dog, and I never even thought about it. It's only when people used to watch and ask like, how does he understand? I never. It's actually, sometimes you just do things, so I feel like there's something else in terms of communication. Mm. So if we go by what you're saying, then what does it matter what the mother is doing when she's pregnant? Because we say that the mother should listen to Srimad Bhagavatam, associated with purity. So that make it. Hmm. I have a, I mean, I don't know. I'm not backing it up with anything scientific, but somehow I feel like the child understands. As soon as the child comes out, the child understands certain things. Otherwise, if we think that everything that you do in front of the child, because that child is so pure that he can get contaminated by anything that happens around him, and we believe in that, right? We have to be care. So I don't know. I have. I'm not talking about the gross, the body. I'm talking about the mental. This. So you can even abuse an infant, right? By misbehaving in front of an infant. So if that infant has no comprehension, how does that happen? So I feel there's something very. I feel that it has an influence on the child. But I could be wrong. I, I somehow feel that there's something beyond words and language. Yeah, I speak to the lizards and snakes and everything that's around me. And I mean, I don't know if they understand me, but something. I mean, I just feel like you can talk in whatever language you want, but I think there's a communication channel. I don't know. I believe in it somehow, and I've seen it work. I could be wrong, but I've experienced it, and that's why because yeah, he used to. And it was just something amazing that I have experienced with him. We read when he was almost passing away. We read the entire 15 chapter. I sat down and read with him, and he listened very attentively. And the like the whole purport, verses, translation, everything. And then once we were done, I was. It could be also my state of mind. What I like whatever is going on in my mind, he would show on the outside. So if I go out when it's dark and I have fear, immediately I can see that fear creep into him, and he'll kind of come close to me, and his whole body stance changes. Um, so how is that communication happening? I've really experienced that with him. And we see this even between when you have relatives, you don't have to say anything. They'll understand something's wrong or something's happening. Haven't you experienced those things? Oh, a dog is just an example. I think with children also, it's very common. Children pick up what the parents feel about. Like even if a person comes to your house, and it happened once. Like someone came to my house, and I was not so comfortable with that person. And this person even brought children. And usually my dog is very friendly with children and likes to play with children. But he just didn't leave my side. He was always with me because he wasn't comfortable. So how is that possible? How is that what is that communication? Uh, I feel it's the same with children. Uh, I've not had children, but I feel it's the same mechanism. Very subtle. It's hard to explain. I mean, I've seen it, and like I think I mentioned this also. Just before he passed away, I was reading Govinda Damodar Stotram, and completely peaceful. He just became so. He was always like that. Like even when he was passing away, he was so peaceful and nothing, because people told me it's going to be very difficult. He's going to suffer. You're going to suffer seeing him suffer, and nothing. None of that happened. Yeah. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he went through the forest, I mean, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna himself, uh, all the animals were dancing with him in kirtan. Yeah, devotional service is not really an escape from our responsibilities, right? We whatever we have to do, we have to do. It doesn't mean, oh, Krishna will take care. I'll just, I mean, even yes, yes. Yesterday, Mukunda Prabhu was saying that uh, what is surrender? Eh, not in like let's not think of scriptures. Let's think of surrender in day-to-day life. If you go to the street and tell the person on the street what surrender to me, what does it mean? Give up, right? Like you put your hands up, right, and you say, "I give up. I'm not going to you. I'm not going to endeavor at all." And that's what it is. But it's very hard. Uh, Surrender, that complete surrender, is when you have realized that we can. There's nothing in this world that I can do, and the will of Krishna. So Mukundatta Prabhuji was giving the example of Sri Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who's the embodiment of Guru Nishtha. He was one of the most disciples. And I've heard this. So when he was asked to go to China, he didn't want to go to China. It actually, he was frustrated and he said, oh, well, if everybody has a problem with me, then I'll go to the moon. I'll probably go to China. And Srila Prabhupada caught on that and said, yes, you're going to China. So he was fighting with Srila Prabhupada, saying, I don't want to go. But when he came back, and Srila Prabhupada said, if you don't go to China, you just sit here in Mayapur and you can chant if you want, but I'll take all services away from you. Because at that time he was leading the Radha Damodar party, everything was going so well, and he was arguing with Srila Prabhupada how that service is so important and he cannot leave all this and go. And then when Srila Prabhupada gave him this final thing, he went back to his room and he was thinking, why am I doing all this? I'm doing this for pleasing Srila Prabhupada. But when Srila Prabhupada is telling me to do something, how is it that I'm not doing that? So it's kind of an interesting thing. And he's so well known for this because that's how his book, Servant of the Servant, also, right? Like he analyzes everything that Srila Prabhupada says and he takes us through that journey, how he really goes into like deep analysis of what Srila Prabhupada is saying and how he applies that instruction in his life. And I thought that was very educational, this point of we say we want to please Srila Prabhupada. We want to please our spiritual master. But when the spiritual master says something like what you were saying, give us a tall order, right? It's very difficult to follow. Why is it so difficult? If our life is dedicated to pleasing the spiritual master, then it doesn't matter. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.